Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Led to Gold. If you're new here, this is a podcast devoted to discussing all things growth and wellness, and that's exactly what we're here to do yet again on this lovely Monday. This is episode 16, and I'm really excited to say that I got a new guest on the show. So we have a guest episode. I haven't had one of these in a while, but this is an extra special one because today we are having a conversation with my little baby brother, and this conversation was just really wonderful. Casey and I have kind of had a history of going into deep talks with each other, whether it was when we were kids, just, talking about our dreams or like what do we think happens when we die and just crazy stuff like that, or now as we've gotten older, and as you'll hear in this episode, as Casey has come into his faith a lot more, we've been able to have some really great conversations just in terms of what it means to be here on this planet and what we're meant to do, how we're meant to interact with the people around us, the people who mean so much to us, or maybe not, strangers too, all of it. But this conversation was really wonderful. One thing I do want to mention as we go into it is that Casey and I don't have the same religious or spiritual outlook as it stands. But what I absolutely loved about this conversation was being able to kind of bridge those two worlds and see where he comes in with his perspective, having gone very deep into his faith. And it's truly, when I think of him and I think of his lifestyle, I think of that as kind of the pinnacle of why he does the things he does. And I just am so excited to be sharing this conversation with you today. We talk lots about healthy communication and how we got from our childhoods, not necessarily learning that or not seeing great examples of that, and coming into the world as adults kind of with a clean slate, and how he really came into being able to have healthy relationships with the people around him. So there's a lot of different takes in this episode. There's a lot of different sort of spiritual avenues that we go down, but I hope that you'll stick with it. I hope that you learn something. And as per usual, take what works for you and leave the rest. But these are just some little tidbits, especially in his life, that he's come through and learned from. And it was just such a joy to talk about all of it with him. And I have a great relationship with my brother. We're really close, but I learned a lot of things about him in this conversation that I didn't know, which was really cool. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy. And as per usual, if you really do enjoy this episode, if you learned something from it, it would mean the world to me if you could share it with a friend, or even take a second to rate the show on whatever platform you're using. It really helps other people to find the show, and that is ultimately the goal. So if you feel so inclined, that would be so awesome. I would love you so, so much. And yeah, I just hope you enjoy. Thanks for being here. Love you. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
This is going to be fun, I hope. Maybe a little emotional too, but we'll see. So the first thing I wanted to ask, and I know this, but other people don't know this, like what is a typical day in your life right now? What is life like for you right now?
Life for Jules and I both is busy right now, but that's kind of how her and I have both always been, just being involved in a lot of different things. I go to work on site, so like in person, Monday through Friday from I usually wake up at like 5 a.m. and I read the Bible and I have breakfast and I leave for work by 6 o'clock. And I'm at
Hmm.
work at 6:45, and then
Yeah.
I'm there until like 4 p.m. So I'm usually working from like 6:45 to 4, Monday through
Yeah.
Friday. And Jules and I have like the only night where we don't have something routine going on is like Wednesday and Friday. So Wednesday is like our reserve night for just the two of us to
Got it.
either go on a date or chill out together.
Got
And
it.
then Friday is just whatever comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So busy as heck as per usual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Hmm.
Are you liking that or are you trying to change that?
Yeah, more recently, no, we are not liking it. So our weekends have been really busy, not just the weeks. And maybe we get into it later, maybe not, but we realized we were just kind of like saying yes to every good thing that came our way. And so all of our weekends, we were saying yes in advance to every good thing that came our way
Hmm.
until all of our weekends got booked up. Uh, and we kind of just got to the tail end of that. And in the midst of it, we had a little breakdown together and realized like this isn't good for us. We should learn to have forethought and talk about these things before we just say yes to all the good stuff.
True.
So we've had conversations about like changing what our weekends will look like
Hmm.
and just doing less over the weekends. And then we've already worked on trying to get our week routine less busy by like we used to be involved at two churches. Now we've committed to just one church.
Hmm.
We I'm trying to figure out how to handle my job and the busyness that comes with my job. So that's something that like I'm not happy about, but I'm working through what it looks like to actually figure it out.
Cool. Yeah. And we can
Yeah,
talk about that too, like whatever comes up just as we're thinking about things. But one thing that
sure.
I usually do start off talking about with guests is, thinking about what your life is like right now and just your routine and the people you spend your time with. Think about how that's different from 10 years ago. Like how have things changed from who you were 10 years ago, what you were doing, like how did you spend your time? So 2013, let's see, you would have been probably
13.
like eighth grade. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been 13. So it looks entirely different.
Yeah.
You
Tell me
know,
about it.
you know, the funny thing that I've been learning recently is like all the tangible things are completely different. Like I was 13 and in eighth grade, but at the core, it's actually kind of consistent.
Okay.
Uh, I've always been a just like so involved. Like anything that I could get myself involved with, I did. And then everything I was involved with, I wanted to do as best I could.
Hmm.
Like three sports at the beginning of high school,
True.
you know,
I remember those days.
going out with friends all the time, Boy Scouts, piano, like any opportunity that came up, I committed to it. And then I just did it with everything I had.
Hmm.
And although all the opportunities look entirely different now, like nothing's really changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I think at your core, you're still very much the same person and like
Yeah.
your motivations are the same. I feel like your personality's changed a lot, but maybe you don't. Like, I don't know, maybe not your personality, but just the way that you carry yourself, maybe. Is that how I want to
Yeah.
say that?
It's interesting that I'm just now realizing like a lot has changed, and yet a lot of the deep things have not changed.
True. I had that.
Yeah.
I had that too. I like looked
Yeah.
back and I'm like, wait, I am still very much the same person, but also not at all.
And it's like a lot of my decisions have changed.
Yeah.
23-year-old me makes much different decisions than middle school or high school me would.
Uh-huh.
But oddly enough, I'm learning that the motivations behind those decisions are pretty similar, pretty consistent.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just I guess in what it might bring to you and like your life enriching, perhaps.
Uh,
Or how do you think of it?
I've always been motivated by just like I've been I'm in a community group, like a men's group with a lot of other guys, not a lot, seven other guys in my church,
Hmm.
and we've been kind of just like deep diving and learning about the things at the center of our hearts. And I feel like some of the things that typically drive me are things that like aren't really true. Like I've come to believe that like I am worth the amount that I do. Like
Oh,
I am
yeah.
worth how well I do what I do. If I'm not ahead of the people around me, I'm not enough.
Mm.
Um, uh, I am what like I am worth what other people say of me, and so whatever other people are doing, I have to do what they're doing.
Mm. Hmm.
And I can look way back and see how that motivated a lot of my decisions way back. And it even motivates the decisions that I'm making now, even though those decisions are like a lot different than they would have been.
I gotcha. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And you and I think, have even talked about that before. But now that you kind of have maybe a support group, I mean, do they give you advice on that, or is it just a space for you to kind of talk about it?
Yes, to
Yes, as in
both.
they give you advice.
They do.
Okay.
And it's a space, it's a process though. So
Right.
I am slowly but surely coming to the understanding of just how deep a lot of those things are and how
Hmm.
much they impact the decisions that I make. So
I love that.
beginning to realize,
Yeah.
and the time for advice and change has not come to fruition yet.
But it's there. Like the conversation is happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
process. It's happening.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, I'm really glad you mentioned that because really a big thing that I wanted to talk about just as a whole for today is I feel like for both of us, you and me, it's been a really important life lesson to honestly like learn how to communicate what our needs are or just healthfully communicate in general.
Hmm.
And I was curious because I don't think that you and I have ever talked about this aspect of that, but where do you think that comes from? Our need to work on our communication.
Oh, let me think about that one for a second.
Yeah. And you could
Hmm.
even think about it too, as in what you just said about feeling like you need to do all of the things to be worthy. Like, where do you think that might come from?
I think a lot of it comes from our parents and just like what we, I don't know if it's learned or if it's literally just kind of an inherent quality because you are to some degree the people that you came from.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of my tendencies, I'm realizing, come from more so mom than dad. Not like some of that I think is inherent because she is the same way, but also I think
Yeah.
she's taught us that over time. Like when I
Yeah.
look back, I see how she has always encouraged us to be involved in every opportunity that came up and everything that we do it to the best of our ability.
Mhm.
And if I'm being totally honest, looking back, I feel like I kind of took to that maybe more so than you did, and I took
Mhm.
it and ran with it. And because I think I've always been, we were both always super involved, but like I just went hard after everything that I've ever
Yeah.
done. And I don't know, feel free to disagree, but I don't know if you did that to the same extent as me.
No, I mean, I totally thought that you and mom were so similar in that way. And I think even a couple years ago, when after I met Jules, we talked about how you guys have the same Enneagram, and a lot of
Mm,
that was in the description for you two. Is just how how involved you feel like you need to be and where your worthiness comes from. So when I saw that, I know that's not necessarily the answer, but that made a lot of sense to me because
mm,
I see her patterns of needing to be involved, needing to do things being passed down to both of us. And I totally think you're
yeah.
right. Like I grew up with the mentality that you never quit. And I think you did too.
That was part of my reflection that
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not a bad thing at all, but there are pitfalls to it because then, like you've talked about, you kind of tend to burn out and like not know when to say no.
Yeah,
I think that's a big part of all of it, really.
it is.
Yeah.
Can be a little frightening. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just realizing like I don't know. I can see it starting to catch up with me now. And now that
Mhm.
I've like taken on a lot of responsibility and all this stuff, like come to a new stage of life, doing things entirely independent. And that's when I start learning a lot of this stuff about myself. And I'm like, wait a second, like I don't really think that's the way. Like
Mhm.
I am not worth what I get done. I'm not worth like how well I get things done or what other people say about me. Like there's something else. And I'm just still trying to figure that out.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you said that because I think in different ways we're both figuring that out right now. In fact, the last podcast episode that I did was about women in particular, but just people in general needing to learn how to stand up for themselves or say no. I say particularly women because I feel like it's so hard for people like me or people like us who, grew up being told you can never quit. You have to always see things through to the end and whatever. It's really hard when you find yourself in a situation that you don't like to decide, well, do I need to just stick this out or can I walk away? And that's something that I'm definitely trying to be better about in my own life.
Yeah.
So I think we have similarities there,
Yeah.
just maybe in different ways because we were different, I think, in the way that, you did 3 sports, you did all the APs, you were like literally never sleeping. And after a
Hmm.
while, I was like, I don't want to do all of this. But I think just it showed up in my life in different ways,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I think so too. No, I do think so too.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's oversimplistic to say, oh, one is good and one is bad and one is right and one is wrong. But I'm
Mhm.
starting to see like, I think I used to kind of look at it like that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I achieve things because I'm a go-getter and I work really hard and like that's good. Like that's the right way. And now I'm seeing a lot of the consequences of that. And like,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's just
I don't
something
know.
to sift through.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
something to
mean,
think about. We'll never get it entirely perfectly right, but like
yeah,
something to think
yeah.
about.
It's a trial and error process, I think.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, looking back on that when you were younger and kind of like the things that you tied yourself to, were there any things that at the time, I know we're talking a lot in like the present, but at the time, were there things that you noticed about your life or about things that you were involved in or things that people that you associated with even that frustrated you? Like, did you ever feel frustration about the way that your life was going back then? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um,
I think about
uh,
your party days.
yeah.
Not necessarily that part of your life, but just like when you were really involved in that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it kind of went through like some progression. What I'm thinking of is things that I was kind of like disappointed in about myself and things that
Okay.
I didn't like about the way that I was doing things and I wanted to change them. Is that along the lines of what you're asking?
Totally. Yeah.
Because I remember distinctly in like seventh grade, one of those I have come to call them like agreements, things that aren't true that I've made agreements with.
Mm.
That's just kind of the lingo that our group uses that we're
Yeah.
talking about right now.
Yeah.
Um, One of the agreements that I've made over time is like, I am worth what other people say about me.
Hmm.
And so whatever they're doing, I got to do it because if I'm doing what they're doing, they'll say good things about me. And then that makes me like, I'm more worthy. I feel better. So like going into middle school, I remember being like desperate for friends and not just friends, like desperate to be in the popular crowd. So I was observing like what is it that they do and what do they validate? What do they find like worthy? And they appreciated troublemakers and
Mm.
funny people. And so I was bound and determined to do whatever it took to make them like me and be popular. So I got into a ton of trouble intentionally, sixth grade. I was a bully. I was disrespectful to like a lot of my teachers. You probably remember all this. And like I
A
was
little
getting in
bit.
a lot of trouble at school and probably with mom and dad also. But it worked is a sad thing. It's like
Hmm.
I made a lot of friends because all those popular, I'm air quoting, popular people thought that that was funny.
Hmm.
But I distinctly remember in seventh grade, after having really upset one of my teachers, like literally making a teacher cry because of something that I did, I was like, that just doesn't feel good. Like, I don't
Hmm.
like what I'm doing in order to get what makes me feel good, I guess. I was like, this is just not right. Like, I should not do this to like benefit myself at other people's expense. And I just remember being determined to not do that anymore. So that was like one period where I was disappointed in what I was doing. I was frustrated with the way I was going and I changed it. I think the party scene changed later on in life. You let me know if you want to go there or not.
We can go there. Totally.
That was like going into freshman year of college is when that really changed.
Yeah, I would say if I remember correctly, or even, I don't know, maybe even later in high school too.
I think I just slowed down later in high school because I was like slowed down in the party scene because I just kind of been through it all and
Hmm.
realized this isn't good for me. Like almost got arrested a couple of times, got way too messed up doing this or that, and I was just like, that's not fun or good for me. I'm gonna take it a little bit easier. So I started like slowing down with the partying. But late in high school, end of senior year, I just realized that like a lot of the decisions that I was making were pretty selfish and like indulgent.
Mm.
And that was coming at the expense of our family. I was never home because I was always out at parties. Just realized a lot of the decisions I made were like selfish and hurtful to other people. And that came around the same time that I started like pursuing Jesus and learning about Christianity. And so as I learned more about the gospel and started following Christ, like it changed the people that I hung out with. I wanted to go hang out with other people who are like minded in that and who followed Christ also. And then that naturally changes the scene with
Yeah,
partying less.
right, right. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the same way that I think of it when you started going to Bible study and just kind of, I was never sure if that starting that was the reason for the big change in your life or if they get just kind of like happened at the same time. It sounds to me like you noticed that you wanted something different and then you kind of pursued that.
Well, I noticed I was really disappointed with where I was at yet again. This is not where life is found
Hmm.
in partying and going after girls and doing what makes me feel good at other people's expense. Like this is not where life is found. And then I started to learn about Jesus and just like had people in my life that walked with the Lord, walked with Jesus, and that's where they found life. And
Right.
I learned the gospel and like just found it to be true. And like that's where I started to find life and
Yeah.
fulfillment and validation and all the good stuff. So like I'm gonna go this way and I'm gonna not do those old things anymore because life is not found there and I'm
Hmm.
finding it here.
Yeah. It wasn't bringing you the joy that you hoped maybe that it would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like the way you said that too, because I think that happens to a lot of people, but maybe with different things. If religion isn't their thing that they find,
Hmm.
it's something else. But one question that I want to ask in that, because I tend to think of your beginnings of finding Jesus as like really that's where you changed, or that's where I noticed it anyway.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll just say this, like I always thought that you had really good communication skills because you were so social and everyone liked you. But do you think that there was a change in your ability to communicate with people, maybe in a healthier way? Or I guess my question is what role does your faith have in your ability to practice healthy communication?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that. I think there's two things. I'm going to start with the first and hopefully remember the second. But I learned somewhere along the way, and I don't remember where. I really do think that the Lord just kind of like spoke this to me. I don't know, in prayer one day. Like, you can only know and love, you can only love other people to the depth at which you have received love from somebody
Mm.
else.
Mm.
Because if you haven't experienced that elsewhere, you just don't know how to give it, right? Like if you're not full, you're not going to be able to pour out.
Totally.
And that was like 2019. It was spring of 2019 when I learned that lesson. And I realized that like knowing, I'm just going to tell it from the way
Mhm.
that I see things,
Mhm.
from my perspective, knowing that God Almighty, who created people, right? He's the deepest and the Almighty, like being. And I know him and love him, and I know that he knows me and loves me very deeply. And so when you have experienced a love that deep, it really impacts the way that you know and love other people. And I've been following the Lord and seeking God for like since freshman year. So that's however many years ago, 23 minus 17,
6, 7.
6 years. We'll call it
Yeah.
6 years. And in doing that, it's just like any other relationship, right? Like
Hmm.
you have to intentionally seek and pursue understanding of that other person, spend time with them, ask questions of them,
Yeah.
listen to them, relate to them, walk and talk with them. Like it looks just like that, but that
Yeah.
comes through reading the Bible, prayer, whatnot, and then just like parsing through what the Lord has to say through those things. And over 6 years, I've come to know and love the Lord, and I know that He knows me and loves me really deeply. And I've learned healthy communication skills by walking and talking with the Lord.
Mm.
And in turn, like I was very deep in Christian community all those 6 years, and still I am. And those are other people, like-minded people who have walked and talked with the Lord for however long, and just have received that deep, deep love and know how to share it with other people.
Right.
And
So
so
it
I'm
helps to interact with them because they've practiced
totally,
it too.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think. Well, there was a second thing.
Okay. I don't want you to forget,
Uh,
but I have a question that came up when you were talking about that.
okay, go
When
ahead.
you were explaining like feeling that deep love, how did you know? Like how did that come to you? How did you feel that for somebody that
Mm,
may not have the experience, or maybe it's like somebody who doubts that there is a creator larger than us?
yeah.
Does that
How
make
did I
sense?
come to experience the love? I
Yeah, like
guess.
where did that come from? How did that happen? If you can
Well,
explain it.
I will do my best to explain it concisely. I started studying the Bible alongside Sean Welsh, who's an old math teacher that you know and other people
Mhm.
may know. But like we started like reading through the Bible together, and we read one of the Gospels. I think it was the Gospel of Matthew. So we started reading together and studying together. I'd go to his house twice a week. And as I was there, well, I'll get to this in a second. I came to know the love of God because I read the historical account in the scriptures about Jesus's life and death and resurrection, like on earth.
Hmm.
And all the words that Jesus said while he was alive, like we know that Jesus died separated from God because we're imperfect and he's perfect. That's how it is. He's perfect and we're imperfect. So there's separation there. Jesus died to get rid of that separation, right? Like he bore, I guess, like the punishment that we were supposed to because God perfect, we're imperfect. Jesus died so that we don't have to. And that Jesus, because Jesus died for us and gave up his life for us, we're reconciled to God. And when you sit and study the scriptures, you just come by reading the accounts, like you come to see the deep love that God has for his people, that he would be willing to like sacrifice his son for the sake
Gotcha.
of having his people back in a relationship with him. Like he went so far as to sacrifice his son because he loves us, that
Hmm.
he wants to be in a relationship with us that bad.
Hmm.
So I started to see that in the scriptures, but also like I was learning that with Sean, who is a man that has walked with the Lord for a very long time. And I saw the love that he had for his family practically displayed every day, and the love that he had for me when there was no reason for him to show me that love. He showed it to me, and it was unlike anything I had ever experienced.
Mm,
And being perfectly candid, like I saw in the Welsh family a lot of the things that I realized were lacking in ours.
mm,
And I realized that is because he knows God and he knows how to love people because he knows, like, God is love. He knows, he just, God knows how to love people really well. I see that in Sean. Like, I want that.
hmm.
And so that's why I was motivated to continue to pursue God. And like, I know that he loves us because he gave his son for us. So
Right.
that's when it became real to me.
I think that's such a good way to put it because in my experience and just with people that I've talked to, it's sometimes I've felt that it's not enough just to read about it, but then
Yeah.
when you see that in someone's life, that tends to make a huge difference. And I think that's really special because, you know, it's like you said, like he didn't have to show that love to you and he didn't have to, bring you into his home and kind of take you under his wing, but he did. And I think that like having that paralleled with watching how he lived his life and how he loved people,
Yeah.
really that
Totally.
can make a huge difference, which is really
Totally.
cool.
I mean, I just saw tangible impacts on him because of his faith. And like, I think you could attest that you have seen that in me as well. Like,
Yeah.
and I just realized this is real. Like,
Hmm.
the people who have a relationship with God, like, this is real. Like, it changes things
Hmm.
now. Like,
Hmm.
it's not just something that was written down 2,000 years ago and
Right. When you
is what
are
it is.
able to practice that and actually witness it in your waking life, I think that is what really makes a difference because
Yeah.
when you, I think something that I struggled with when we went to church, like when we were kids, was that I never really saw it. And a lot
Hmm.
of people, I mean, I know it's not just me, but I think a lot of people can't quite grasp it until they see it
Yeah.
somewhere in, on the earthly plane, if you will.
Sure.
Um,
Yes. Makes sense.
yeah, yeah. But I think, I mean, I really love that explanation. I think that's excellent. And
Yeah.
if not that person, Sean, being like the first one that kind of showed you that side of life, once you were able to go out and meet other Christians and other like minded people, then that's where you really learn how to, I don't know, I guess how to relate to the world in a healthier way. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Definitely. Like I said, just going back to what we talked about before, like I learned to communicate with people much more deeply and
Hmm.
intimately and genuinely because I knew how to communicate with God and how
Hmm.
He communicated with me. And I practiced that with other people through, I mean, it wasn't just Christians, like all of my friends.
Yeah.
I started to pursue on a much, friends and family started, everybody started to
Hmm.
pursue on a deeper, more genuine, more intimate level because I had received that somewhere else and I learned like what that looked like.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing I thought about earlier, the second point on that was like one thing specifically about the Christian faith that has taught me to communicate with other people much more effectively and just like more beautifully, I think, is like God, right? You think about God and you think of somebody like high, pie in the sky, aloof.
Hmm.
I can't see him. I don't know him. He's not active in my life. He doesn't know me. Well, again, yeah, well, people get that picture of him, right? But 2,000 years ago, like he cared so much about us and about mankind and about the people that he had created to send Jesus and to like come God in the flesh and be with his people. And I say all that because God literally came from like heaven to earth to seek understanding and to show his people that he could sympathize
Hmm.
with them because God came in the flesh in the form of Jesus. Like that can be really unfamiliar to some folks, but like to try to sum that up, it's like he cares about us deeply. He wants to know us intimately, and he wants to be approachable. He wants to be with us. So like he
Mhm.
came to be with us and literally moved like heaven and earth to do that. The essence there is to seek understanding and pursue sympathy with other people.
Right.
He was willing to do all that to be understanding of us. Like I have learned to do whatever it takes to be understanding of other people and to consider other people's interests more significant than my own and like genuinely care about what they have to say and like pursue understanding of where they're at and what they think and that sort of thing. So that's been that comes in big handy in marriage and has
Yes.
just been like a very, yeah, probably the most tangible impact my faith has had on the way I communicate with people. It's like it's no longer just me. I want to know what they think, and I want to know that first, and like I want to understand.
I love that. And I think that that's a really hard lesson for a lot of people to learn,
Mm-hmm.
especially, well, I think a big part of the sort of spiritual communities that I'm a part of is kind of taking ourselves as a collective from thinking so individualistic and turning back into a collective, like genuinely thinking of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially in America, I think that's something that we have. That's what we were founded on. You know, we are individuals. We seek self success,
Yeah.
and that's just such a way of life. That's what we're born and raised to think. So it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people to, no matter how they find that, to actually reconsider, oh, I need to think about other people too. We can't really, I believe we can't really live in a just society at all unless we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I love that idea seems to show up in a lot of different areas of life, whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality, whether it's just like, you know, figuring out how to be a healthy communicator. That's the whole
Yeah.
spiel, right?
Yeah. That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
And you said you mentioned, you know, having to practice this in marriage, and I do want to talk about that if you're cool with it.
Yep.
Um, I think by most standards, and I'm talking like, you know, non-religious people, you tended to like you married pretty young or like even in a pretty like short amount of time from when you met Jules. But
Mm-hmm.
was that hard for you? Because I think if I understand correctly, I feel like when we grew up or as we were growing up, that wasn't really the norm. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean by that? As we were
I guess
growing up, it
just like
wasn't really the norm.
I guess just like marrying young.
Wasn't the expectation for just people our like our generation, I guess.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
because let's see, you were 21 when you got married
Yeah.
or 20, 21?
It was 2021, so I was 21. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think yeah, I guess that's what I mean. It's just
Wow.
it's a little unusual. Did it ever phase you?
How old am I now? Hold on a sec. It's
You're 24.
2023.
Wait,
Okay,
aren't
yeah.
you 24?
I am 24. I just recently turned 24.
Okay.
But if I was 21 when I got married,
No, you were 22 then. You were
no
22.
way. That would make me married for like 4 years. This math
No.
isn't adding up.
No, you were 22 when you got married.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. That math adds up. Sorry.
Jules had just turned
22.
22, literally like the day before, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's
Okay.
August. Her birthday's August 6th. We got married August 8th, so she had just turned 22.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, we're on the same page now. Sorry, I was like, have I been married for 3 years already? I don't think so.
No. Close.
But
No.
to answer your question, it was hard, but it was also beautiful. Uh, I think something that made it easier is that I knew like there's never going to be like the one, there's never going to be this perfect person without thinking, kind of shooting from the hip. I remember myself saying this a lot. Like, what I wanted to make sure was that I found someone who was willing to do the hard work that it takes to have a good marriage and like do that hard work with joy because we know that the aim is a healthy marriage. So it's kind of like this hard work is worth it.
Mhm.
And Jules and I are totally on the same page in that. And I was abundantly clear. So it made it a lot easier.
Can I ask, were you seeking a wife in college? Or were you just kind
Mm,
of like, I'm going to see what happens, and then you met Jules?
yeah, that was it. I mean, I
Okay.
met Jules freshman year and then our relationship kind of developed over time. So it was junior year before we started dating. Um, no, I didn't have like this intention to get married in college. But once Jules and I started dating and I knew that I wanted to pursue her, I knew that I was only going to pursue her and date her if I was like moving towards marriage.
Okay. Once you guys were dating and you realized what it was, you were not like, okay, this is just a relationship. You were more like, I want to marry this person.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into a serious relationship unless I was like the point to me of a serious relationship is to move towards marriage. So that's kind of what happened there was
Yeah.
like I knew I
Yeah.
wanted to start pursuing her and I knew what that was for me and that's how it happened. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but yeah.
No, I like that. I
I
think
didn't
that's
go
a
into
great,
it with the goal of marriage, but as soon as I knew I wanted to date her, I knew like this we're dating now so that we can figure out if we want to get married. And
yeah,
if not, we're going to go our separate ways cuz we don't want to like get too serious if we're not going to do life together.
totally. And I think
Yeah.
that is the way that a lot of people look at it. I was just wondering if, I wouldn't want to say like sought her out, but if you met her and were like, she's my wife,
Didn't
it
quite
doesn't
work
sound
like
like it.
that. Didn't quite
Yeah.
work like that. I didn't expect to get married in college, and I didn't know if we were going to get married when we started dating.
Okay. Gotcha. And kind of just on the same note, I mean, what did you guys have to learn together to make it work? As you were dating and as you were deciding, is this the person I want to spend my life with? What were some of the things that came up for you, communication wise, even? Did you guys ever have issues with talking to each other, or how did that come up when you maybe had a
Yes,
first argument?
I will say. I mean, we are. Yeah, I call their arguments. We had hard conversations throughout dating. One of the deepest things that we had to learn, or maybe no, one of the deepest things that we had to learn in order to like get over the hurdle, I guess, was that we're really different,
Hmm.
and that's good.
Tell me more. I didn't know that.
I'm a really deep thinker. You did know that.
I did know
I'm a
that.
very critical thinker. Jules is not. She's a very like simple person. Uh, I will try my best to put it in her own words. She, we use an analogy to describe it. If you're swimming in the pool, she always floats, kind of like grandma always floated on the surface of the pool. And if I
Mhm.
get in the pool, I just sink. Like I sink straight to the bottom. And that's like, it's funny because that's actually what happens when we get into a pool. But
Nice.
like, it's just true in our way of conversation. Like for me, a fun date. Here's a lighthearted example. And one of the first times that we learned this was a difference and that difference was hard. We asked her on a coffee date early on in our dating relationship. We went and sat down for coffee. And for me, I was like, this is going to be really fun. We're going to sit down. We're going to have the opportunity to talk about like really deep things and just like, I don't know, freaking philosophy or whatever's on our hearts and our minds. And we're going to talk. It's going to be awesome. And Jules just didn't go into it with that expectation at all. I don't really remember what she wanted to do, but it
She
wasn't
probably was
that.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get coffee and it's gonna be fun and cute."
Exactly.
And that's it.
Coffee, fun and cute. Like maybe we'll go to the farmer's market. We'll laugh a lot. And it's just like, it's going to be light and it's going to be good and fun. And we just went into it with completely different expectations.
Mm.
And we were both really disappointed and upset. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's when we had the realization how different we are in just the terms of like, I'm heavy and she is light. I don't know, I'm deep, she's not as
Hmm.
deep. That sounds bad. I don't like saying that, but like,
I get
I
what you're
don't mean
saying,
that in a
though.
bad way,
No,
right?
I get what you're saying.
Um, so we learned that. We learned it was hard, and I was like, I don't know. Like that was one of those questions that I was like, is this good? Like, or is it really bad? Is it going to be really hard to be married to one another because we're just so different?
Mhm.
And it was like an older, wiser married couple that we met through our church that gave me that, just counseled me when it was like, hey, you're really different, and that's really good because you're going to be more well-rounded and like um marrying someone like Jules is going to help you understand people that aren't like you. And that's really good.
Mhm. There's been a few things in our conversation that I didn't realize we had in common, but we totally do. Because I've had that, maybe not conversation with my partner, but more a realization within myself that I am like you and that I love going super deep, and I love exploring emotions and just talking through everything. And that's why part of why I do this podcast is so I have an outlet for that.
Yeah, yeah,
But I had to learn that he's not like that. He also likes to keep things light, and sometimes I think maybe, yeah, I showed you guys the game We're Not Really Strangers. We're gonna play it in a
right,
second. But
cool.
um when I introduced it to him, I'm always like, oh, let's play this game. Or like when we go hang out with friends, I'm like, I'm going to bring it. And he's like, why? We don't have to do this like every single time we see our friends or,
Yeah.
every single date night. And I'm like, but I want to, because I just
Hmm.
loved stuff like that. But I think that's really interesting that just bringing it back to sort of the beginning of this conversation that you and I, as people who had to learn to communicate and learn how to explore our emotions more, I think, how we're so attracted to those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I started having those kinds of conversations with like men that were my age in college, I was like, I've never had a heartfelt, sincere, intimate, deep conversation with like that was this good. Like
Mm-hmm.
brought us to tears, learned a lot about
Oh,
ourselves, and like it was just so encouraging and
it's weird.
filled with joy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is where it's at. And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of where it's why I have changed, because I wasn't always like a deep person in that way, but I love it now. And now I'm kind of at the point where I'm realizing, like, okay, yes, you love that, and it is good and it is beautiful, but it's also really good and really beautiful to just go get ice cream and laugh and have fun.
that is so well said.
Yeah.
I'm learning that too.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be deep and dark, and not necessarily dark, but not
In my
everything has
mind,
to be a learning experience.
right. In my mind, well, in my
Maybe the
driven mind,
simplicity in and of itself is a learning experience.
very true. Because in my driven mind, it's all about what do we do? Like, what have we gotten done? What are we learning? What progress have we made? And when I started dating Jules, to be perfectly candid about like what I thought, like I don't know if I've expressed it to her this poorly or not, but like I kind of just thought it was a waste of time. Like I'm not doing anything, I'm not learning anything. Like to just go sit and laugh, like it's a waste of time.
What's the purpose?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not right. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is not the right way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I really did have to pursue and seek understanding with her and sympathize with her in the way that she is to learn to value what she values. And like, I love going to get ice cream or coffee and just laughing with her now because it lights her up. Like, I see the joy on her face and it makes her come alive. And I'm like, hey, this is where it's at. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about going over here and doing the things that make me come alive. Like, it's one beautiful thing about marriage or partnership is like, I have the opportunity to help Jules come alive and be filled with joy. So like now I know her really well and I have opportunities to do that. So
I love that.
yeah.
And well, one thing that made me think of, I don't want to go way too over time, but just if you haven't heard this before, this is something that kind of comes from the relationship advice that I see in my corners of the internet or whatever, but I've seen this theory that it's called polarity, but the feminine person in the relationship tends to be the one with like the energy and the like, like just wants to go and do everything and have fun and like experience it all. And then the masculine person in the relationship is maybe more purpose driven and more like solitary and serious. That's how I understand it anyway. So
yeah,
it's really cool when you can start to understand that and see it in your own relationship and then play with it, because the other part of polarity is learning as the masculine person in the relationship how to have fun and be light and vice versa, which is pretty cool.
Because it's not all about me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do have a legit, like, it's not all about me. I am filled with joy when I see the people around me coming alive and doing what brings them joy. So I learned that lesson about like that, the joy that it brings me to watch people around me come alive. I was listening to a podcast, maybe on marriage, from this guy, Andrew Peterson, who was telling a story about, he's a musician, and he's probably as old or older than our dad. So his music is really different. And he had, like, I don't know, old. He's old. He had a young daughter, and she wanted to go to some rock concert or like pop concert. And when she asked him to go, he was like, "Oh God, I have to go to this thing. I don't want to go." And he went because he kind of got over himself and was like, it's going to make her really happy. And then he watched how happy his daughter was at this concert, and he's like, this is what it's about. Like, this is awesome. And I really love my opportunity to do this because I see my daughter come alive.
That's great. I think that's definitely an experience that everyone needs to have kind of on their healthy communication and relationships journey, is seeing that in other people and truly feeling the joy in it. And, I know you and I are definitely not introverted by any means, never have been, but it's something that I think when you witness it and truly let yourself witness it and be present with it, then that's when you start to recognize how much of an impact you can have on other people.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question for you, and then I wanted to pull a card from We're Not Really Strangers, but it's an easy question, I think, or maybe not. Some people have had trouble with it, but think about that old version of yourself that we were talking about at the start, 13-year-old Casey. Similarities and differences alike. What would you want him to know about your life now? What would you tell him? If you could take him to coffee. Because 13-year-old Casey, as far as I remember, liked coffee at way too young of an age.
Yeah, he was all about doing, and coffee helped do. Trying to think about it in not terms of advice, because if I could do that, I'll just say, hey, it's okay to slow down, and you probably should. I don't know. It's hard for me not to think about it in terms of advice. Something I'd want him to know. I'm trying to remember what he was worried about back then. All right. Here we go. Here's the answer. I would tell him that your story, hey, 13-year-old Casey, like, your story is good. Yeah.
Your story is good. And it is. As your older sister, I have always looked up to you because you did it right, kid. Are you ready for a card?
Yeah, I am.
I do this at the end of every podcast episode, whether I have a guest or it's just me. Okay. But here we go. Okay, and this is actually, I just pull a random one, but this is a great one for the conversation around communication. And you can take some time to think about this too, and I can answer also. When was the last time you didn't ask for help but really needed it? Explain.
Today.
Okay, tell me about it. Explain.
Well, today, I explained a little bit before you started recording, I think, but like, my managers at work have pretty much moved on to the next job and are hoping and expectant for me to take ownership of what is left, which is still a very significant amount of work for a relatively inexperienced person. Um, it's all about schedule in the construction world. If A doesn't happen, B can't start.
Right.
Uh, but calling off B has huge implications for B's company, and it's going to cost him a lot of money to like push it back. But if it's, I don't know, I don't want to get too into the weeds. Essentially, I called off B, the guy who was depending on A, because we didn't think A was going to come through. So I called him off and I told him, you can't come when we have had you plan to come. Like, this sucks. I hate to do it, but here's the new plan. Like, this is what it is. You've got to do this. And he tried to talk me out of it. And I was kind of stubborn. And I was like, sorry, this is what we've got to do. I understand it affects you poorly, but like, this has to happen. There's no other option. We're just not going to be ready for you to do your thing. So
Right.
you've got to do it. And then I talked with my project manager about it to try to like decompress a little, maybe get some hindsight. And he was like, well, hey, I know a guy that can make A happen. And I was like, oh, really? So we went and talked to that guy. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if A will happen on time. I don't know if I made the right decision or not. But really, what I should have done is just start with my project manager and say, hey, I need some help. Like,
What do I do here?
I need some help. I don't know what to do with this decision. It's got some pretty weighty implications for the people we work with. I don't know what to do. Help.
Mm,
And I
I love
didn't do
that.
that until after.
Well, I don't love that for you because that sounds really frustrating, but that's a great answer, is what I meant by that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be okay. I mean, maybe it won't.
That was like very technical construction. Here's what happened. Here's why it happened. I want to I want to meet their expectations and I want to make my managers proud. So I want to take ownership over this job and I don't want to rely on them anymore.
Right.
I was afraid to
You
ask
made a
for help
decision on your own.
on my own. They counsel me to do that
Mhm.
often. They're like, hey, the more you mess up, like, we want you to be doing stuff. We want you to take ownership. So like, it's okay to mess up. And it is, but at the same time, it's okay to ask for help too. So
True.
kind
True.
of talking out of both sides of my mouth. But anyway,
Yeah,
I was
makes sense.
afraid to ask for help because I want to meet their hopes for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll get there. I mean, you probably already are more than you realize, but
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
There you go.
Yeah. I
What
love
do you
that.
think?
When was the last time that I didn't ask for help, but I really needed it? I think I don't want to make my answer work related also, but I think to make it not work related, I've definitely needed some help having hard conversations lately because I psych myself out of doing them. And again, I mentioned my last podcast episode talks a lot about that, where I am like too nervous to have a conversation, or I act like everything's cool and like whatever, I don't care, but I really do. So I think I need a lot of help in being able to either say no to people or stand up for myself, or just generally have a hard conversation about expectations that I have. Because I'm not good at that. I really like to just make everybody else happy. And, say, not save face, but just like save discomfort.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So that's a hard one
I
for
could
me.
use some help. So if you have any helpful conversations, let me know what you learn because
Cool.
I'm not good at those either. Like, another reason why I called that guy and told him this is what we're doing, you can't come when you had planned to, was because like I hate conversations like that. And I was like, well, I just gotta get over it, so I'm gonna send
Yeah.
it.
Make it
And I had
fast.
finally decided in my mind, like, this is what I'm gonna do. Let's just make it happen. So I was like,
Mhm.
hard conversation, and here we go. And
Yay!
it was not fun. It was very scary, but it's all good.
We're getting there. We're getting better at it, I think.
Yeah. I'll share one more thing.
Yeah.
Just because it came to me that Jules and I have been talking about lately, and we're trying to adopt it as our new motto. And our new motto is that it just ain't that serious.
Oh, yeah. You told me that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just ain't that serious. I love
that
it.
Conversation just wasn't that serious.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. You're alive. You're still here. You're not going to die.
Yeah.
That's what I have to remind myself of sometimes because it feels so big and so scary and oh God, they're going to hate me and I'm going to totally ruin their life. And like, no.
It's not that serious.
Just not that serious.
What did Dad always used to say?
It is what it is. No, it was something like that.
I feel like we would ask him how he was doing or how his day was. No.
It wasn't it.
Dad,
was it when he would say, not every day is good, but there's something good in every day?
Could have been. It was along those lines anyway.
I always liked that one. I always liked that one.
He just always had a good day. In his mind, it was always a good day. That's it.
It's not always a good day, but there's something good in every day.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
There we go. That's a good note to end on, if you agree.
I agree.
Cool. All right. Well, I also normally end my episodes by telling people where to find you, but my brother's Instagram list. So
yeah,
don't worry about finding him. He can't be found unless you find him in the streets of Atlanta, Georgia.
Exactly.
That's all we got.
There you go. But
thanks so much for doing this with me.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
I hope I didn't keep you too long.
No, this is good.
I think we're good. Okay, cool. This was lovely. Let's do it again soon. Or just, just a chat.
Just chat.
Cool.
We could both be a little better at that, but
it's a thing.
What it is. It is a thing.
It is what it is.
This is a good way of catching up.
Yeah, it was great. All right. Well, have a good rest of your night. I love you.
Thanks. I love you too. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.